You're listening to CFRN, the Christian Financial Radio Network.
Good afternoon, traders, and welcome back to the CFRN E-mini Futures Cast.
This is the daily broadcast of Indeterminate Length, where we discuss all things Emini, along with some really big ideas on the finer points of trading gold, bonds, crude, sugar, the euro. Joining us today, Mr. Michael Borth. From our trading desk in Chicago, Mr. Burton Schlichter. Now, to get things started, let's go to our host and founder in Studio A, overlooking South Mountain, America's largest city park. Here's Dwayne.
Good afternoon. Welcome back. Today is Tuesday, 29th day of July, 2025. Thanks so much for joining us. Whoever you are, wherever you are, we're just glad to have you right here, right now. We do 2 live broadcasts every trading day. The first broadcast is our live training room. So that is reserved for members only and those who are taking their 1-week free trial. If you have not taken your 1-week free trial, go here to mytradingiq.com. At the top of the page, there's a big purple button. You can't miss it. Click it, fill out the form. There's no credit card required. We'll get your indicators up and indicating today. Your trial will officially begin tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, and you'll get 5 consecutive trading days. The weekend does not count against you. Now, this broadcast, the afternoon broadcast, is open to the public. Everybody everywhere on planet Earth with an internet-connected device. There's 2 different ways to join this afternoon broadcast live. Best way, you only have to do it once. Go to mytradingiq.com, scroll down the page to where it says Noon Broadcast. Click the link, fill out the 30-second registration form, and you're done. What will happen going forward, every trading day, you'll get an email about an hour before this broadcast starts. In the email, there's a link. So at 12 noon Eastern, all you have to do is click the link in the email, and it will automatically log you into our platform. The benefit there, you'll have access to question box right away, so you can ask questions and participate in the discussion. Of course, there'll be days you're out of the office, away from your desktop, but you still want to join live. Some days you'll be busy, so you can't join live, but you want to get caught up later. You can do both of those via our YouTube channel, which is easy to remember. youtube.com/CFRN. That's the Christian Financial Radio Network since 2005. So you don't have to remember all that, just youtube.com/CFRN. Not only do we broadcast live every trading day on our YouTube channel, as we're doing right now, simulcasting, but we also archive each and every daily broadcast. Currently, there are over 2,800 daily episodes archived for your educational and viewing pleasure. Now, if you're new to our neck of the woods, it's a great way to get to know who we really are. Thanks to the power of YouTube, you can actually see how we've evolved over the years. You can scroll back 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, even more. Obviously, you're not going to watch them all, nor do you need to. But it is a great resource to have at your fingertips. And it lets you know we've been around a minute. This is our schedule for each afternoon broadcast. Normally at the top of the hour, Michael joins us for a recap of the live training room, and then a little live trading on the TradingView platform. He's going to be out today. He'll be in the live training room tomorrow morning, but he'll also be out tomorrow afternoon. So today's broadcast will be a little shorter than normal. Usually runs about 2 hours. Today it'll probably be closer to 1 hour, maybe an hour and a half. We'll see how it goes. So let's dive into our daily devotional, which is where we start each and every day. and this is day 4 of 4, the solitude practice. Today's scripture is Mark 1, verses 32 through 39, and I'm going to share it from the Message translation. That evening, after the sun was down, they brought sick and evil-afflicted people to him. The whole city lined up at his door. He cured their sick bodies and tormented spirits, because the demons knew his true identity. He didn't let them say a word. While it was still night, way before dawn, he got up and went out to a secluded spot and prayed. Simon and those with him went looking for him. They found him and said, "Hey, everybody's looking for you." Jesus said, "Let's go to the rest of the villages, so I can preach there also. This is why I've come." He went to their meeting places all through Galilee, preaching and throwing out the demons. Again, that was Mark 1, verses 32 through 39. So as we wrap up this topic on the solitude practice, today we talk about the encounter with God. All the saints and sages of Christian history say in chorus, solitude is a foundational practice for the spiritual life. No matter your personality or your stage of life, solitude, silence, and stillness hold a raw power for transformation that few other disciplines do. Because in solitude, we encounter God. Over the last 2 days, we made the point that solitude is the place of encounter. First, an encounter with ourself. Second, an encounter with our enemy. And now we're ready for the final and most important encounter of all, an encounter with our God. In Mark 1, we read yet another story of Jesus and the Eremos. In context, Jesus is coming off a marathon day of teaching in the synagogue, healing the sick, and casting out demons. But instead of resting, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place. And he prayed. While everyone else is sleeping, Jesus goes into solitude to pray. Simon and his companions went to look for him. And when they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone's looking for you." Jesus replied, "Let us go somewhere else, to the nearby villages, so I can preach there also. This is why I have come." So he traveled through Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and driving out demons. In this story, you see Jesus' pattern of retreat and return. He goes into solitude to encounter God, and then he comes back. And you see that he comes back with this heightened sense of clarity around his identity, his sense of self, who he is, and his calling, and what he is meant to do next. When we encounter God in solitude, just like Jesus, we often emerge with a clear vision of our identity and calling. We all live from an identity or a sense of self. Much is said about the true self in our culture. You do you. But through a Christian lens, we don't discover our true self by seeking it. We discover it by seeking God. When we go into solitude, we encounter God's love and hear His voice over our identity. As a result, we realize we're not what other people say or think about us, and we come away with a new clarity on who we are in God. And when we encounter God's love, we then feel safe enough to surrender to God and His direction over our lives. And then we are inevitably sent by God back out. And we come back with a new clarity of purpose around our calling. This is what I'm meant to do and not do, so that we can say yes to God's call on our life, but also so we can say no to all the other calls on our life. But we need to learn to wait on God and listen for His voice. This process of encounter often takes way longer than we prefer. We've been so formed by our current culture of speed, 5G, Wi-Fi, orders on Amazon, and it's on your door a few hours later. But the spiritual life has its own pace, and it's slow. Much of it is spent waiting and listening. If listening prayer is new to you, it's very simple. Dr. Aliyah Tassi from Kenya says there are 3 keys to listening prayer: a quiet place, a quiet time, and a quiet heart. Quiet place is a distraction-free zone. A quiet time is one of the best catchphrases to ever come out of the evangelical tradition. And a quiet heart, that's tough because our heart is so full of noise. An hour spent in silence may be the noisiest hour of your life. All sorts of distractions come up. You let them come, but then you let them go. You still your mind before God. Then you just open your mind to God. And our invitation to you is not just to experiment with solitude for a few weeks, but to incorporate this practice into your rule of life. By this, I mean to incorporate it into your life's architecture of apprenticeship to Jesus. To find a daily place for solitude, even if it's just 10 minutes, when you wake up or before you go to bed. To find a weekly place for solitude. Maybe you spend a longer chunk of time in the quiet on your Sabbath or day off. To find a monthly or seasonal place for solitude, that's where you'll discover the practice of retreat. But also to begin to denoise all of your life. The Apostle Paul said to the Thessalonians, "Make it your ambition to lead a quiet life." You will likely find this as you follow Jesus. You crave quiet more and more because you crave God. God is waiting for you outside the noise, the crowds of people, the hurry of city life, and all the distractions of our time. So, do you desire to encounter God? Then say yes to Jesus' invitation to solitude, silence, and stillness. Follow Jesus into the quiet. And that brings to a close our devotion on the practice of solitude. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, thank you for showing us the balance between serving others and seeking time alone with the Father. As you healed the sick and brought hope, help us to walk with that same compassion. And like you, may we rise early to pray, finding strength, direction, and peace in your presence. It's in your holy name we believe and pray. And everybody said, Amen. Amen, and happy Tuesday. Let me give you the numbers from around the world. We'll start here in the U.S. with the cash markets, or the indices as they're called. Currently, the Dow is down 201 points. The NASDAQ is down 47. S&P 500 is down 12. And the Russell 2000 is down 11. They're all the same color. Now, I've got a news article for you that I'll share in a few minutes. We got consumer confidence numbers today, which came in better than expected. So why the drop in the markets? Well, we'll see if we can figure that out through the course of this broadcast. In the commodity basket, crude oil is up $1.12. Now, when crude oil moves $1 in either direction, that's worth $1,000 per contract traded. And I'm pretty sure yesterday crude was up over $1. And I think even I'm not sure about last Friday, but we'll look at it when we go to the charts. So crude oil's up $1.11 now, trading $67.81 last. That's a gain of almost 1.75%. Gold is up $7.20, trading $33.1690 last. Silver's up 7 cents, trading $38.29 last. In the Asian markets at the close, the Nikkei dropped 323 points. Shanghai rose 11. Hang Seng dropped 37. And in the European markets at the close, FTSE up 54. The DAX up 247, which is just over 1%. The CAC up 56. So we had a mixed day in Asia. It was a green day for the UK. And so far, it is a red Radio Tuesday here in the US of A. So again, as futures traders, we like to see the 4 major indices the same color. That's when you get better follow through on your trades. Now with futures, you can be long, short, long again, all in the same hour if that's what the chart in front of you is telling you to do. And when the 4 major indices are all the same color, again, you have better follow through on your trades, because when the markets are mixed, it's kind of a tug of war. So we got what we're hoping for. Let's see what we do with it. News. Global. At least 4 people, including a New York City police officer, were killed yesterday when a man fired a rifle inside a Manhattan skyscraper that houses the headquarters of both the NFL and investment firm Blackstone. The suspect, who died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, reportedly had a documented history of mental health issues. The motive for the shooting is still under investigation, at least at the time of this article. Now, I did have another article I wanted to share with you. but it was on my phone. I think I lost it. Not surprised. Here. Maybe it's on Dan Bongino. He had big news this morning. Where did that go? Anyway. We'll see the news later today. It's really Dan just trying to show what the FBI's up to. He promised he'd be more transparent than his predecessors. It was a pretty good article. Let me just take a quick moment and see if I can find it. Nope. And nope. It's not there on their page. Scrolling. All right, we'll let it go. Some Chinese nationals were arrested. They were here for the purpose of espionage, stealing military secrets, trying to bribe American servicemen and women into sharing those secrets. I got that news kind of early, so I'm sure it'll be on your evening news tonight. Our next news article is a sad one. Hall of Fame second baseman Ryne Sandberg passed away yesterday at the age of 65 after a battle with metastatic prostate cancer. Born in September of 1959, 1 month before me, in Spokane, Washington. Sandberg was affectionately known as Rhino and spent 15 major league seasons with the Chicago Cubs, compiling a .285 batting average, 282 home runs, and 1,061 RBIs. He was selected for 10 All-Star teams and won 9 Gold Gloves. In 1984, he was the National League's MVP, including the legendary Sandberg game, and helped lead the Cubs to their first postseason since 1945. At retirement, he held the Major League Baseball record for most second baseman home runs with 277. His number, 23, my birthday, is one of only 4 Cubs jerseys retired. He's also been honored with a statue at Wrigley Field last year. Guys, I know you don't want to hear this, but about 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in their lifetime. And the disease accounts for over 15% of new male cancer cases. So you know what they say about early detection. I had 2 very close friends. Well, one died from the prostate cancer. The other survived the prostate cancer and then died in a freakish accident at the gym. He had a heart attack on the treadmill. And if you've ever been on a treadmill, if you stop moving your feet, that thing will sling you off. And it threw him across the room, and he hit his head on a fire stanchion where firemen come in and plug in their hoses. And after 5 days in a coma, his family turned off the machines. He was also, Larry Olson was his name. He was very instrumental in the early days of the orphanage that my wife and I built. And Kampala, Uganda, East Africa. He loved going there. When he was in his 70s, he was out in the dirt, playing with the kids, shooting hoops. He's one of my heroes. Do you know anybody that stutters? Developmental stuttering is associated with 48 genes, according to a study published yesterday. The study is the largest ever genetic analysis of the common speech impediment, which affects 400 million people worldwide. Researchers partnered with 23andMe to analyze the genetic information of 99,776 users who consented to participate in research and answered yes to a question on whether they stutter. They compared the data to over 1 million users who responded no and found 57 distinct genomic regions associated with those who stutter. The genetic architecture for stuttering overlapped with genetic pathways for autism, depression, asthma, and ADHD. A top associated gene for stuttering, VRK2, is linked to the ability to synchronize movements to a musical beat. Now don't get freaked out if you can't dance. But there's a tie there. Researchers hope the findings will help identify the condition earlier and improve understanding of stuttering to reduce stigma. And how many of you grew up watching Kung Fu? Well, I got bad news. A friend of mine, David Carradine, was the actor who played Kung Fu. I have a friend who was a stuntman in Hollywood for many years. He and David Carradine were roommates. This was long before. It was actually during the early days of filming of Kung Fu. I was in, I think, the 7th or 8th grade when the show was really popular. And Dan tells me, my friend, that they would sit around in the apartment and smoke the bong, and that Carradine would then get up and start jumping and kicking and flying all over the apartment. Anyway, that's not the point of this article. Young Zine, chances of me getting that right is pretty slim. But he was the high-profile abbot of China's famed Shaolin Temple. We all heard that on Kung Fu. He was defrocked yesterday and is under investigation by Chinese authorities for allegedly embezzling funds, having numerous affairs, and fathering at least one child. Now, you're probably wondering if that was the guy with the white eyes. I don't think so. He joined the Shaolin Temple, widely regarded as the birthplace of Kung Fu and Zen Buddhism, in 1981 and became the abbot in 1999. Nicknamed China's CEO monk, he transformed the 1,500-year-old temple into a global brand through ventures such as selling medicines, producing films, and establishing cultural centers overseas. While some have praised his efforts for spreading Buddhist culture, others accuse him of commercializing the faith. He has also risen to national prominence, serving as vice president of the Buddhist Association of China and an elected representative of the National People's Congress. This week's investigation recalls allegations of financial misconduct and fathering illegitimate children made against him in 2015 by self-identified shale and insiders. He was cleared in 2016 of the charges by state authorities. Makes you want to watch some reruns of, I don't think I've ever seen Kung Fu on Netflix or Prime. It might be there, but you'd certainly think it would be in syndication at this point. What a great show it was. It was wholesome. He was such a quiet, peaceful guy. And wherever he traveled, kind of like Agatha Christie. You didn't want to be her traveling partner, because wherever she went, somebody died. And wherever Kung Fu went, that was his name on the show was David Carradine was his real name. I'll think of it in a minute. Anyway, let's move on. The Justice Department is putting American companies on notice that they could be prosecuted if they choose to evade President Trump's tariffs, even as the legality of the president's Liberation Day duties remain unsettled in U.S. courts. Come on, how long do we have to grind through this? The message came in a DOJ announcement earlier this month stipulating that prosecutors would step up investigations into suspiciously classified imports and charge those who misidentify products with fraud. We already know that China has made some attempts to ship products into other countries, have them relabeled, maybe rebranded, and then shipped into the U.S. to avoid the tariffs. Well, if you're an American company and you get caught dealing with China or anyone else doing that type of thing, they're going to come after you. While the DOJ has always taken some custom cases, this is a different, more aggressive, visible stance than they usually would. The plan, to be carried out by the DOJ's new Market, Government, and Consumer Fraud Unit, marks a shift in enforcement tactics from prior administrations that relied mostly on policing misconduct through administrative proceedings, even during Trump's first term in office. The new Trump administration instead wants to prioritize criminal charges against companies and individuals that try to evade U.S. tariffs. The overarching strategy was first outlined by the head of the Justice Department's Criminal Division, Matthew Gagliotti, who wrote in a May memo that an increasing focus on white-collar crime would include trade and customs fraudsters, including those who commit tariff evasion. At the same time, the Trump administration finds itself in the unusual position of defending the legality of the duties it pledges to enforce. Why? We're raking in billions of dollars. For the first time in history, there's fair trade. We've been ripped off for so many years. What red-blooded, tax-paying American would not want to see our country prosper? It's mind-boggling. It really is. I'm almost to the point, I don't even care anymore. It's just ridiculous. Now, this is big news. If you have an Apple phone, there's a good chance you might also have an Apple credit card, which of course is tied to your phone and allows you to swipe and pay with your Apple credit card, right? Well, that deal has been with Goldman Sachs for many years. But JP Morgan is in advanced talks to take over Apple's credit card program from Goldman Sachs. Talks between the largest U.S. bank and the tech giant began last year as Goldman sought to unwind a partnership that had once been a cornerstone of its consumer banking strategy. So apparently Goldman's not upset about this. In fact, I guess they support the deal. Apple's down 1% on the news. The deal would, and other news, the deal would further entrench JP Morgan into the credit card business and add a string of victories to CEO Jamie Dimon, the modern-day Willie Sutton, who has built the bank into a dominant force across retail banking and Wall Street businesses. Crude's up amid better-than-expected U.S. economic data that came out today and concerns about international supply disruptions. Robotic startup Skilled AI, backed by Amazon and Japan's SoftBank Group, unveiled yesterday, a foundational artificial intelligence model designed to run on nearly any robot, from assembly line machines to humanoids. Now, you remember where you were when President Kennedy died, right? Of course you do, if you're old enough. But there's a day coming that you're going to remember as well. You're going to walk into a Walmart or a CVS, and you're going to see a humanoid stocking the shelves. Are you going to be excited for the technology? Are you going to be worried about the jobs lost? Are you going to be just freaked out? And I'm sure everybody will stand and ooh and ah. I wonder how the humanoid will react to that. Keep moving, folks. There's nothing to see here. It's coming. How soon? Well, things seem to be moving at a pretty fast pace right now. The model, which is called Skilled Brain, enables robots to think, navigate, and respond more like humans. Its launch comes amid a broader push to build humanoid robots capable of more diverse tasks than the single-purpose machines currently found on factory floors. In demonstration videos, skilled-powered robots were shown climbing stairs, maintaining their balance after being shoved, and picking up objects in cluttered environments, tasks that require spatial reasoning and the ability to adapt to changing surroundings. Now, I have a question. So this robot can maintain its balance after being shoved. What happens when it becomes smart enough to shove back? The company said its model includes built-in power limits to prevent robots from applying unsafe force. Okay, but what's unsafe to me and you might be a little different to a robot. Skill trains its model on simulated episodes and human action videos, then fine-tunes its using data from every robot running the system. Co-founders Deepak Pathak and Abhinav Gupta told Reuters in an exclusive interview that the approach helps tackle a data scarcity problem unique to robots. Unlike language or vision, there is no data for robotics on the internet. So you cannot just go and apply these generative AI techniques. Robots deployed by customers feed data back into Skilled Brain to sharpen its skills, creating the same shared brain. I mean, the day's coming when you'll pull up on a construction site, and instead of seeing men and women out there hammering nails and sawing lumber, you're going to see robots doing the job. Fast food restaurants, yep. Now, because these robots can work literally around the clock, a new housing development that might take 6 months to a year to go up, might possibly go up in a couple weeks to a month. Guess it depends on how many robots they deploy. The big question, I suppose, that hangs over it all is, how do you keep them from getting too smart? They'll never have a soul. Only God can do that. But some of the things that we're seeing done now would have seemed like pure science fiction 5 to 10 years ago. The Trump administration's trade agreements with a handful of countries are helping Americans feel somewhat more confident about the economy's health and its future. Consumer confidence climbed 2 points this month. The numbers came out this morning with a reading of 97.2, showing that people's attitudes about the economy have stabilized after deteriorating sharply during the spring when Trump unveiled massive tariffs that threatened to jack up prices and weaken the labor market. But consumer confidence has recovered since then. The stiff levies Trump unveiled in April have been delayed several times, and the administration said it has brokered trade agreements with 7 countries, including China. That came out this morning. The United Kingdom and Japan. Earlier this week, the Trump administration announced it had negotiated the contours of a trade agreement with the European Union, one of America's biggest trading partners, describing it as the biggest deal ever made. The survey was conducted in the weeks leading up to July 20th, so it doesn't capture perceptions of the EU trade deal. Just think, pretty soon in Berlin, you'll see a Ford Mustang or a Chevy Camaro. You don't see those today. From Reuters, the largest rail union in the U.S. said today it intends to oppose Union Pacific's proposed $85 billion buy of smaller rival Norfolk Southern in regulatory proceedings, citing concerns about how the largest ever buyout in the sector will affect U.S. workers and infrastructure. And we hear a lot about the trucking industry because when you walk into a Walmart, every item there arrived via a semi-truck. We all know that. How did that merchandise get onto those semis? In many cases, it was by rail. I'm sure there's some air shipments that come in, but think back a century when the fortunes of people like J.P. Morgan, the J.P. Morgan, and others, where did they make their fortunes? On the railroads. It was a bit of a brutal business, but people flocked to work on the railroad. Now, the union is fighting this. We approach this development with measured skepticism rooted in the real-world impact that such consolidation could have on rail workers, safety, service quality, and the long-term health of the freight rail industry. If approved, the deal would create the country's first coast-to-coast freight rail operator, combining Union Pacific's stronghold in the western two-thirds of the U.S. with Norfolk's 19,500-mile network that primarily spans 22 eastern states. I never knew there wasn't a railroad that went from the East Coast to the West Coast. Now I do, and so do you. Okay, local news. Logic 247. That is, in case you don't know, our 24/7 around-the-clock E-mini alert service. It's not just E-minis, it's also crude, gold, silver, We're currently in week 365. Over the last 365 weeks, we've issued over 20,160 individual handcrafted alerts. And what we've averaged on a weekly basis is 20% or less of the alerts being stopped out based on simple market structure and a simple process we teach all of our passport holders in their one-on-one mentoring sessions. Since the markets opened this past Sunday night at 6 p.m. Eastern, we've issued a total of 27 alerts. Valerie did the recap this morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. She will update any changes this afternoon, as she does each day. But at the time she did the recap, we had 27 alerts issued since Sunday night at 6 p.m. Eastern. Still waiting on the outcome of 10. That gave us 17 actionable alerts, of which so far nothing has been stopped out. It's only Tuesday, so we got the rest of the day, the rest of the week. That number will change. I think last week we ended up with 13% stopped out. And it was a pretty heavy week because we had over a total of 60 alerts, I believe. But here's where we stand for this week so far, midday on Tuesday. Now, every logic alert has an entry price. There's either a B for buy or an S for sell. Then there's a T. Stands for initial target. In fact, why don't I just show you, in case you don't know. We go find them. There we go. Okay. This was the Globex Open Sunday night. Last week, we issued a total of 67 alerts, 11 never triggered. That gave us 56 actionable alerts, of which 7 or 13% would have been stopped out, again, based on simple market structure and the simple process we teach all of our passport holders. Now, the ES. The idea here is to buy 64.53, and the initial target was, I mistyped that, 64.55. Anyone who trades the alerts knows that. That's the first time I looked at that. I'm surprised Valerie didn't correct it. Now, that was above the highest weekly trading zone. Typically, an alert will have an entry price, an initial target designed to help you get your goal for the day, then additional targets, and then a final trade to target. Okay. Now, this was alert number 20,146. The goal we were looking for was 64.55. Valerie even mistyped it because of my mistake. The swing high was 64.55 and 3/4. The Dow, the idea here was to buy 45,275, initial target 45,295, next target or obstacle 45,360, 45,540, and then the final trade to target on a long is always the weekly trading zone above. On a short, it's the weekly trading zone below. Now, the swing high only took us up to 312, so we cleared that initial target, but we never got to the second target. On the Russell, buy 2285, initial target 2287, goal for the day. Potential resistance at 2289, and the final trade to target was the weekly trading zone above, 2293/94, And the swing high was 2293.2, right in the zone. Here we had a long on the NQ by 23,538. Initial target 548. That's $200 per contract traded. Now on all the alerts, the initial target is always worth $100 per contract traded. With the exception of the NQ, because of its volatility, the initial target is worth $200 per contract traded. The next target or potential resistance was 23,558. The final trade to target was 23,624/25. That was the weekly trading zone above. The swing high was actually 585.25. So we hit the first target, we hit the second target, and we came just shy of hitting the final trade to. Crude oil. Oh, that's all messed up. What did we get to? 65.80? Yeah, something's wrong with that alert. I'll have to ask Valerie about it. So far, no trigger. So far, no trigger. This was a short on the ES. The initial target, 64.15, then 64.13, then 64.11, and the swing low is 64.0875. This was a short on the Dow. Selling 44,995 down to 975. That's enough to get your goal for the day. Next target 915, then 825, then 810. Now we've since hit all those numbers, okay? But at the time she was doing the recap Sunday night, the swing low at that point was 958, which was right in here. But see, in the beginning of Logic 247, we tried to recap all the triggers, because once an alert triggers, there's an extremely high probability it's going to trigger multiple times. Why? Because important prices, important areas are almost always tested. But we realized early on it was just going to be too complicated. So when we do the recap, we recap the first trigger and leave it at that. Good, bad, or ugly. Here's a short on the Russell, 2269 to 2267. Goal for the day. And then the next target or potential support, because it's a short, was 2261, and that's what we hit. Now we've since traded lower. This one, that should have triggered by now, but maybe it hasn't. This was a short on crude. Crude's been rising this week. Here's a short on gold, short on silver. Now, that all happened Sunday night. As we roll into Monday, we had a short on silver, a long on silver that has not triggered, might trigger today. No trigger there on gold. Then we had a long on gold, and we made it up to 33.28 on the initial move. Then we had a short on crude, long on the NQ, no trigger here, long on the Russell, no trigger here yet. Long on the Dow, short on the Dow, long on the ES, short on the ES. And that brings us all the way up to today. I have not put out any new alerts yet today. So that's what the alerts look like, so now you understand them when you look at them. People always go, well, what am I supposed to do with these? Well, it's pretty simple. Buy 45.075. And if you're just looking to get your goal for the day, take profit at 0.95. No matter how much potential profit there is in an alert, you never risk more than $300 per contract traded. Now, if it's an alert that only has $100 of potential profit, that's a maximum you risk. Now, let's say this alert had $500 of potential profit from the entry to the final trade to target. If you know you're going to jump out here, then that's the maximum you risk. The Dow takes 20 points to reach the goal for the day. So if that's all you're looking to do, then you just kind of ignore this other stuff, and your risk is based on this. But if you think the trade has potential to really move, you can then risk up to $300 per contract traded, but you never risk more than the potential profit in a trade. That's bad math, bad science, and eventually you'll blow up another account. And that's the very thing we want to prevent you from doing. So, now that you know what the logic alerts look like, if you're new, here's what we said for the week. 27 alerts, waiting on 10, 17 actionable, nothing stopped out so far. And that will change by the end of the week. Although we have had weeks where it's like 2 or 3% stopped out. But that's pretty rare. The average over the last 365 weeks has been 20% or less. That's the humble answer. The true number is right around 12%. Okay. 365 weeks is a very long time. However, before there was a Logic 247, years before, we had the concierge trade alerts, and they're different. The logic alerts can come out anytime around the clock, 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. Futures trade around the clock. We have traders around the globe. Our day session is their night session, and vice versa. Typically, the CTAs will be published 5 minutes before the Globex Open. We all know today's the Tuesday session, but the Tuesday session began last night at 6 p.m. Eastern. So 5 minutes before the Tuesday session began, all of our traders had all of these targets. The S&P 500, the Dow, the Russell, crude oil, the NQ, gold, and silver. So as we go through the individual markets and you see these targets drawn out on the chart, just remember our traders had these targets 5 minutes before the market opened. So with that, we can go to the chart, to the charts. We'll start with the chart. Now, yesterday we did end up with dark cloud cover. Or, no, we actually took out, this is today, Tuesday, Monday, Friday. Friday's low, 64.01. Yesterday's low, 64.0875. Really, 64.01. And sometimes it's hard to tell. So we did not take out Friday's low yesterday. So that is dark cloud cover, which is bearish. It's a bearish candlestick signal. It's not as bearish as a bearish engulfing, but See, if we had come all the way down and got below Friday's low, that would have made it a bearish engulfing. This is dark cloud cover, and as you can see, it's bearish, and look what's happened to the market today. We had a run up, and then we talked yesterday about where the market was most likely to find support, and it did yesterday at the black step line. And blue and climbing, it's really support times 2. If we close today below blue and climbing, that will be interesting because we know we're going to have a ton of volatility tomorrow afternoon. And the markets typically get kind of quiet and consolidate into an FOMC meeting. And we have 2 of the Magnificent 7 reporting after the bell tomorrow. So, but you got support times 2 right here. And the market's just resting on top of it. Right here's where we opened last night. We moved higher. And then we dropped. Below so far, 6,400 even, round number. Okay. The 30-minute chart is where all the alerts are created. Concierge and the logic alerts. Nothing magic about 30 minutes. Just pick a time frame and stick with it. You got to learn to think in multiple time frames. I recommend you spend 2 minutes with the daily chart of whatever you're going to trade before you go to the smaller time frames to actually execute the trades. But in between the daily and the range chart that you execute, find a time frame. Some people like 15 minutes. Some people use an hour or 4 hours. Stefan uses the 4-hour chart quite a bit. I started using 30-minute chart a long time ago, many years, and I've stayed with it. If it ain't broke, I'll leave it alone. The vertical line separates today, Tuesday. Back here's Monday. Back over here is Friday. Now these are the zones that were published Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern. When price rallies up to a zone, we expect resistance until proven otherwise. And when price drops to a zone, we expect support until proven otherwise. Now we had a bullish cross back on Friday. And I highlighted this and I posted it in the discussion group yesterday. When the blue line gets above the green line and leads to an extended move, the first time price revisits that area will almost always be good support. And it was. In fact, it was good enough support to create this. Now, the high of the day came in. All you got to do is look left. 64.42. Today's high, 64.42 and a half. So we took out that high by 2 ticks. But that did the trick. Market rolled over. And then I posted some charts in the discussion group this morning. At the open, which is this candle here, I posted a chart right at the open. I said, it looks like we're going to have a dogfight here. We had resistance overhead with red and falling. And then we had support below at the top of the long target. When price trades through the long target, this was the open last night. So we had a leg and a retracement, pullback held. The pullback holds more often than not. And then a leg, hit the long target, this high right here. Then a retracement to the BBC, the pullback held. And then we got this push, okay, which we just discussed. And we rolled over. And that dogfight that I was talking about was this here. And if you watch the open, on a 30-minute chart, you saw price come down. Initially, it found support here and bounced, but then it continued down to the previous bullish cross. Blue line got above the green line, led to an extended move, and the first time price revisited that area, it was good support. The second time price dropped to that area, it was good support. The third time it dropped was good support, and I posted a chart. It bounced, but then before the 30-minute candle closed, we came down. We traded through the zone. Now, only one of three things happens when price encounters a weekly trading zone. 70% of the time is consolidation. 20% of the time is rejection. And 10% of the time is the slice. That's when a 30-minute candle slices through a zone like it's not even there. When that happens and the move runs out of steam, price will typically retrace back to the zone it sliced through. It did it here. You see, we traded through, and then we retraced to the zone we sliced through, continued in the direction of the slice, and sliced again. That's a little unusual. But then we pulled back up, and we continued in the direction of the slice. We put in a lower low, and we did not put in a lower low. Actually, this one continued, but this low here, we spiked this low here, but we didn't quite get to that low. Buyers came in, bid it up, got us back above the zone. We're above red and falling. Now we've got potential resistance. If we continue to climb, potential resistance at the zone. The zones come out Monday morning, 6:15 a.m. Eastern, and once they're published, they're carved in stone for the entire week. They don't change in any way whatsoever. It's how it's been for the last 15 and a half years. Now the step line has not crossed red and falling. See how on the way down they're running parallel? You got price, then the step line, then red and falling. As the step line crosses to the right side of red and falling, that's an indication price is going to attempt to retrace back to the BBC. And this area here is very important because, number one, you had a bullish cross, which served as support once, twice, 3 times. Then on that third attempt, it finally broke through. It bounced for a minute. If you can go to the discussion group and look at the charts. I posted them as it was happening. So now we've got potential resistance here, because once the step line and once red and falling get directly below price, they become support. And as the step line crosses to the right side, price will usually retrace back to the BBC. But before it can get there, it's got to overcome this zone, this high right here, and see the BBC support, support, support for a bit, and then it gave way, but that creates an excellent spot for potential resistance right here. And if we get resistance there, then you got a shot at another nice leg to the downside. That's if we get back up there. The market doesn't seem to be in a hurry. We've had some pretty good movement today, but the day ahead of the Fed can often be a day of some quiet sideways consolidation. But everyone who was looking at the discussion group this morning, see this first line here, it held and then it gave way to this one. Expected support here, which we had briefly, and then here. Then as we traded through the zone, we retraced back to it. Traded through the zone, retraced back to it. It's the power of the bullish or bearish cross. It works the same in both directions. See, up here you've had a bearish cross. That's when the red line gets below the green line. So if price were to come up and overcome the BBC, right here where the bearish cross took place, you should expect that to be good resistance. The Dow. Bullish cross yesterday, bullish cross on Friday. Support yesterday. See that? That's so reliable. If you don't learn anything else, learn that. Support will always send the market looking for resistance. The pullback holds more often than not. Now, in the interim, we had a move up and a drop to the zone. The zone held. When price rallies up to a zone, we expect resistance. When it drops to a zone, we expect support. You're either going to get consolidation 70% of the time, rejection 20% of the time, and the slice 10% of the time. We had quite a few this morning. We sliced through here. This was a heavy move to the downside across all the indices. Now, see the step line? See how it's hooked right? It's trying to cross red and falling, which should happen on the next candle. But we're up against resistance at the zone and the bottom side of the short target. But as the step line crosses to the right side, you should see price go back to the BBC. Then it becomes a question, is it going to hold or not? Well, it holds more often than it doesn't. But just because it held the last time or the last 10 times has no bearing on whether it's going to hold this time. Now, if you've got a lot of blue and climbing chasing price, which I don't think we'll have here, then that's a pretty good indication that price may trade through the BBC. I'm thinking we find resistance here, and we get another leg to the downside. On the Russell, here's where the market opened last night. We consolidated right along the weekly trading zone for 3 hours. And then we got above the BBC, pullback held, leg and a retracement, leg and a retracement, leg and a retracement. See how the market found resistance there the first time up at the weekly zone. Then the next time we got through, we came just shy of hitting the long target. You only need 2 points in the Russell to get your goal for the day. So we hit the long target. Price consolidated there. A key that we're moving higher would have been to have taken out this little twin tower here. But we didn't. So that's a sign of weakness. Blue and climbing turns to red and falling, and so we drop. All the way down to the short target. Get a little bounce, and then we keep going. And going. This low here. I would have expected support here. And right there, you've got a wick pointing up and a wick pointing down. We even spiked that area a little bit. The move down was pretty fierce. I mean, all this happened over 1 hour, 2 hours, 2.5. But now look what's happening. The step line's trying to cross to the right side of red and falling, and price is headed back to the BVC. If it trades through, you got a bearish cross right here, so be aware of that for potential resistance. Okay. On the NQ, here's the open last night. And we just consolidated sideways. Now, I drew this line in early this morning and posted it in the discussion group as a place where the market might find potential support because of this little flat shelf from last night. And it did, and it gave us a little bounce, but then we came right on down to the short target. So we hit the long target, we hit the short target. Step line is attempting to cross red and falling, so look for a retracement up to the BVC. And then right above the BVC, you got a bearish cross. So I would let price get up into this area, 23,620, up to 23,640. That'd be $400 per contract traded. Crude. This was the open last night. We came back to the BVC, consolidated, ran it up to the zone, resistance. That dropped us back to support at the BVC. And then off we go. We hit the long target. Now the step line has already crossed blue and climbing. We're building a red candle. So there's the potential for support here at the top of the long target. But most likely price will continue down to the VBC. And then it becomes a matter of, does it hold or not? You got a zone right below it, so I'm thinking maybe it does hold. Gold. Should have rolled gold yesterday. This was the open last night on the Q contract, and it dropped. What was the low? The low was 3305.8. We had a leg and a retracement, a leg and a retracement, resistance, resistance. Then we got through the zone, pulled back to the zone and the BBC. And this high here is basically this high right here. Okay. Now, in the room this morning, we rolled to the Z contract. So I'm going to go ahead and roll right now so that tonight when I start doing CTAs and logic alerts, I don't forget. Now, you see the difference? Gold is trading 33.80 and change on the December contract, the G contract. Let's go back to the Q for a minute. $33.23. $33.80. It's like a 60-point difference. $6,000 per contract traded. Now, it's a Tuesday. What about the zones? The zones remain the same. Support, support. Now, these zones were created for the Q contract. But no matter what market you're in, no matter what time frame you're trading, the clock on the wall is always price. So the zones are price-based. Support, support, support. The zone 65/66, what's the low here? So we missed it on this one by about 8 ticks, but just kind of sideways. But we could be in a transition because gold has been cratering for quite a while. This bearish cross way up here, it's at around 34.92. When price gets back up there, and it will eventually, got to remember to expect potential resistance. How far do you have to look left? As far as you have to. So any logic alerts and the CTAs tonight will be on the Z contract. If you haven't rolled to the Z contract, you should do so pronto. Silver came out of the gate last night sideways, dropped to the short target. Support will send the market looking for resistance, which it finally found at the long target, just shy of this high right here. This target was based on these three highs right here. So we got what we were looking for. Now watch this close today. If we close below the step line in blue and climbing, it's bearish. But you got potential support here at the 62 fib extension, then the daily BVC, and this 50% fib extension. Look at all the support we've had. Well, we talked about all the days that we consolidated sideways here. We finally broke out to the upside. But this candle right here with this wick up in the air, you got two layers of very important support that we're resting on. So how we close today, very important. But no matter what happens today, tomorrow is going to be a wild card with the Fed. And let's see which, I told you yesterday, but I'll tell you again today. Let's see, Wednesday. After the close tomorrow. First, we're going to have the Fed announcement, then the Fed press conference, and then at 4:05, Microsoft is going to report, and Meta, or Facebook, is going to report. Actually, I think I put a calendar. Robinhood's going to report as well. Qualcomm's going to report. ARM's going to report. Wow, Ford's going to report. eBay's going to report. And tomorrow is a huge day after the bell. Before the bell tomorrow morning, ADP, Hershey, Etsy, Garmin, GE, Fiverr, UBS. There could be some volatility in the morning. Fed day is typically pretty quiet in the morning, but depending upon how these earnings come in, we'll see. We shall see. Okay. To become a member, send an email to support@cfrn.net. In the email, just say, I want to become a member. Valerie will send you an email in return that explains all that you get when you become a passport holder, all that you have access to, and she'll include a link that you can click to actually become a member. You're going to get 2 hours of live training every trading day in an interactive environment. Private one-on-one mentoring at your request. The strategy you learn, the indicators you own as a passport holder are fluid across all markets and all time frames. You get the Logic 247 alerts around the clock. You get the concierge trade alerts the second they're published each evening. Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern, you'll get the weekly trading zones each week. And again, once they're published, they're carved in stone for the entire week. They don't change. And Thursday afternoon, you'll get an invitation to attend the Members Only Workshop, which is held every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. And last but not least, you get the golden keys that open all the private channels in Telegram. When you're on the trial, you have access to the public channels, designed so that you can get the alerts, the logic alerts, the CTAs, the weekly trading zones. For 5 days, we treat you just like you were already a member. And there's no credit card required because we want you focused on learning so that at the end of the 5 days, you can make a well-informed, intelligent decision as to whether or not trading is right for you. I don't think you'll find a simpler trading strategy anywhere on TradingView, which is the platform we use for charting. Everything a trader needs, all under one roof, one low price. And that all under one roof thing, that's really important. See, we're accountable. We don't hype you up with a bunch of promises and then leave you dangling in the wind, vanish in the night. Like I said, we've been around since 2005. So, as you begin to learn our strategy, and learn our methodology, learn how to use and read our indicators, there'll always be somebody there to help you, support you, meet with you, whatever it takes. Okay? People always say, how long will it take? Well, everybody learns at a different pace. So I can't tell you how long it's going to take you, but I can tell you that when you're on the trial, you can chat with our traders and ask them how long it took them. You can even ask them, is it worth the money they paid? That's a fair question. Okay, let's wrap it up with our good word for the day. Believe it or not, God still loves you. I know you've done some heinous things. We all have. But he still loves us. Jeremiah 31:3. I have loved you with an everlasting love. American pastor Dr. Gerald Mann writes this. Moralizers are faithful to remind us that King David's life was all downhill after Bathsheba Gate. That's a play on Watergate. You got it. They list the litany of his woes. The baby of the illicit union died. He never recovered his moral stature. His sons fought over succession. One of them was beheaded for trying to dethrone him. God deprived him of his grandest dream, building the temple. Too much blood on his hands. But take another look at the story. The opening words of the book of Proverbs silence such sanctimony. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. Proverbs 1:1. Solomon, the fountain of God's wisdom, sprang from two people who had adulterated their person and privilege. For all of David's heroic feats, giant killing, kingdom consolidating, hymn writing. His single greatest achievement was the son of his old age. Solomon is a monument of contradiction to all the naysaying moralists of the ages. Where else did Solomon get his insight, farsight, and foresight but at the knees of two broken souls mended by the fires of forgiveness and given the grace of a second chance? You can begin again after your Bathsheba gate, whatever it is, whatever you've done. The Bible warns us about the consequences of sin because anything that has the power to hurt you concerns the God who loves you and wants only the best for you. But when you willfully sin, God won't let you off, but neither will He let you go. And God's love for you has no expiration date. He said in Jeremiah 31:3, "Yes, I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore, with loving kindness, I have drawn you." Repent of whatever it is. Now, repentance means you admit what you did was wrong, and then you turn and go in the other direction. Or as Jesus said, go and sin no more. Inevitably, because you're human and live in a broken world, you're going to screw it up and do something else sinful. The key is not to keep repeating the same sin. Okay? Ask forgiveness, repent, turn and go in the other direction. Till the next time. Remember, no matter what you've done, no matter how checkered your past, the truth is, God still loves you. And that's powerful. Men will fail you, spouses will fail you, business partners will fail you, pastors will fail you. But God never will. And that's our good word for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Whoever you are, wherever you are, may God continue to richly bless you with His mercy and with His grace. And I'll see you at the bell.
Remember this, there is no greater return on investment than to see a human life changed and given hope. As always, pray hard and trade safe. Any financial information discussed on this show is simply the opinion of our host, Dwayne Reeves, his co-hosts, and guests. To learn more about trading E-mini futures or to take a 1-week free trial in our live trading room, call 1-866-928-3310. 866-928-3310. Information discussed on this radio program should not be construed as a recommendation to buy or sell any security. Always do your own due diligence and consult with a licensed securities broker or financial planner before making any investment decision.